Good morning and welcome to the Financial Optimist. And today I'm going to discuss the topic of price versus quality. Is it better to get something cheap or get something expensive? Well, the answer is yes to both. It just depends. So let's go ahead and look at lower cost goods. What are some of the pros and cons? Well, here, the pros, obviously you can save money today. It doesn't cost much up front. And that means you don't need to borrow money. So if you're someone that likes to put things on a credit card, if you're getting an expensive item, you may have to pay it back with interest payments. If you get something cheap, you can just pay cash for it, no need to borrow. And of course, if it is cheap, you can afford to replace the item often. So if you're someone that is wanting to replace cheap goods all the time, it can save you some money that way, depending what it is. But the cons is that cheap goods usually need to be replaced all the time. So in the long run, it could cost you more money depending on how often you use it. And of course, cheap goods usually lack features, they lack quality, they lack comfort. So oftentimes they aren't very good to use. Your expectations aren't very high, but you also didn't pay very much. So, lower cost goods sometimes can be a good deal. But I'd say right here, moderately priced goods, this is where most middle-class Americans are better off. Obviously, if you're watching from another country, you may have different definitions of lower, middle, and higher-end goods. But when I say when it comes to moderate-priced goods, typically you notice that, at least here in the U.S., the quality is much, much higher. And the price is only moderately higher. So you pay a bit more for it, but you get something much better. And it tends to last for a long time. Maybe not quite as long as some of the really high-end goods, but it tends to last plenty long enough. And you don't replace it very as often. So for the cons, is it does take a bit more money up front. It maybe isn't quite as nice as the really good stuff, but overall it's pretty good. This is the best bang for buck that I've noticed, because moderate priced goods, usually the quality is only a little bit less than the higher end goods, but the price is only a little bit more than the low end goods, meaning the value is absolutely fantastic. So for the higher priced goods, the pros are, of course, it's very good quality. It tends to last for a long time. Lots of features, lots of comfort. Comes with things like warranty. You're getting the full package, but you're paying the full price. It's very expensive. And if you're borrowing the money for it instead of paying cash, that means lots of interest payments, making it even more expensive. And because the price is higher, you're paying more in sales tax. So overall, very, very expensive. Obviously, if you're a cash buyer like I am, then that means you can skip the interest. It makes it a little cheaper that way, but it still can cost you a lot of money. So when are situations I would recommend lower cost goods? Well, typically, if you're someone that doesn't have a lot of savings and you really want to avoid putting things on the credit card, you want to be a cash buyer, maybe for now buy something cheap and then later on upgrade to something later. Or here is a good one if you're testing out a new product. For example, years ago when I was a teenager, I decided to buy myself a fixed blade knife for, hiking and camping, that kind of stuff. Here it is. It was like $10 at the time. It's kind of a cheap, flimsy knife, but it's just good enough to get the job done. I've taken it on a few hiking trips. It works just fine. But it was my way of testing out a new product. I didn't have one before. And after using that for a while, I decided to upgrade to something like this. This here is a much higher quality knife. It's around $70, so more expensive. But you'll notice it's made out of a steel here, which is more saltwater corrosion resistant, very high quality. You can put it in your hand, you can tell the difference. It feels so much better in your hand. It's more comfortable to hold. It has much more better balance to it. It has like a knife sharpener at the end here. It has a better sheath. This definitely is a much, much better product, but it costs a lot more money. So if I'm testing out a new product, sometimes I'll just get the cheap one for the first time I buy it. And then if I decide I like it enough, I'll then upgrade to a better one. And the cheap one, I toss that in a box, use it as a backup. So let's say if I couldn't find my expensive knife and I was going on a hiking trip, I would just get the cheaper knife and bring that with me because at least I have something. So for testing purposes, lower end goods are great for that. Also, if you're just going to use it a couple times and then you're going to toss it in a box and never use it again, just get it cheap. Because if it's something where maybe you test it out, you get it cheap, you decide you don't want a nicer one, you put it in a box, never use it again, at least you didn't spend a lot of money. And finally, for disposable products, cheap is good because, if you're going to use it literally just once and throw it away, just save money. For example, here is a stack of paper plates. It's a 40 paper plates for $1. Because I have some friends coming over later today. I'm going to serve some food. And what's the point of spending money on expensive paper plates when I can just get the cheap stuff? It's a few pennies per plate, serve the food, they throw the plates out, I'm all done. Just save money if it's disposable. No need to waste money on that kind of stuff. Because of moderately priced goods, this is where I say it's good for most purchases. It's the best bang for buck. Quality is quite high. Prices are reasonable. Overall, this is where most of the money savings happen. And of course, if you're looking to save money in the long run, you want to get things that last a long time, don't wear out nearly as often, but you save a lot of money. This can be a great way to save some money while also getting items that are quality, items that are comfortable, items that have features, items that perhaps have warranty. It has a lot of the advantages of the higher end goods, but some of the price advantages of the lower end goods. So when it comes to when to use the higher end goods, well, sometimes it's best to have higher end goods. So let's say if you're someone that does have lots of money and you like nice things, sure, go for it, If you like to save money in the long run, that can be a great way to save money getting higher end goods. For example, my parents bought a pair of bookshelves back in about 1990. They paid $500 for each bookshelf. They got two of them, so $1,000, which in today's dollars is like $3,000 because of inflation. But 35 years later, they still have the exact same pair of bookshelves. And they work just fine. Honestly, those things are going to last longer than they will. And so, because they spent a lot of money up front, they have bookshelves that lasted for decades. And mind you, we've moved across the continent several times, West Coast, East Coast, West Coast, East Coast, and they survived every single move. Very, very good quality. So in the long run, it was totally worth it because those bookshelves will end up becoming an inheritance for their children one day. That's how long they're going to last. And so yes, it costs a lot of money up front, but ultimately you save the money because we've also purchased several cheap wooden bookshelves over the years for about $100 a piece. They lasted for about 5 or 10 years and they broke. We've bought quite a few of them over the years. You buy them, they work for a few years, and they break. So if they had purchased a few more of those nicer bookshelves, we never would have bought any of the cheap stuff. And it would have just worked really, really well. So ultimately, higher end goods can save you money in the long run. And of course, they usually come with extra features. And sometimes you need the extra features. Also, if you plan to use the item frequently, that's a big one. Higher quality goods just last longer. So if you're going to be using something all the time, get it higher end. If you're not going to use it much, get it lower end. So, let's go and look at a few real-world examples here. So let's say you want to get just a really cheap pair of hiking shoes. Walmart, $13. You're not spending much, but your expectations are pretty low. I'm not expecting it to be comfortable. I'm not expecting it to last very long. Like years ago, I bought a pair of shoes from Walmart for about $10. Most uncomfortable pair of shoes I ever bought. They lasted less than a year. They fell apart. They broke. I had to buy new ones. So if I did that every, 9 months, bought myself a new pair of cheap shoes, it would cost me a lot of money in the end. But at the very least, you save a little money up front. So again, you save some money now, but it may cost you some in the long run, plus it's uncomfortable. And how much money is comfort worth? Well, that's only something you can determine for yourself, but ultimately, I'm willing to spend a little more money to get something more comfortable. So now here we have a more moderately priced pair of shoes. It's $100 for a pair of brand new shoes, and you look at the reviews, and you realize it's got an average of 4.6 stars customer reviews. So overall, very high reviewed, very good quality. But $100 here in the United States, that's about average for a good pair of shoes. Obviously you can get cheaper ones, you can get better ones, but for just, a good, middle-class pair of shoes, something that's going to last for a long time, it's good quality, it's comfort, it doesn't cost too much. $100 is overall very reasonable for a pair of hiking shoes like this. Alright, but here's a neat trick for saving money. This particular color is $100, but what if you want to switch to a different color for the same pair of shoes? You'll notice here, it's only $88 for the same pair of shoes, just by getting a different color. So that's another money-saving trick. If you're willing to be a little flexible about the exact version of the item you're buying, just get something a slightly different size, a slightly different color. Oftentimes, you can save some money. Here you save 12%, but it's getting a different color. And honestly, both those colors, they look just fine to me. So I would go for this, save a few bucks, and you're still getting brand new. And so that's a great way to save some money while guessing it's still very nice. Like, for example, years ago, my sister bought me a pair of hiking shoes, not unlike these, and I used them every day for about 3 years. I went running in them, went hiking them, I used them for everyday wear. They lasted a long time. And so when they eventually did wear out, I decided I wanted to replace them with a very similar pair of shoes. And I have it right here. This pair of shoes, brand new, is worth about $90. But of course, I got it on sale for about $50. So you get the high quality pair of shoes, you wait for it to go on sale, about half off, saved a lot of money. I've had them for years, they work great. So medium quality goods for not that much more than the cheap stuff, definitely well worth it. But let's say you're someone that has a little extra money and you want something nice. Here's a very expensive pair of shoes, and keep in mind the sales tax is going to put you at about $500 out the door because $465 plus about 8% sales tax, you're talking about $500 at that point. So if you got the money, you can get it. It's nicer. But of course, look at this here. You can buy it used for $338. So that means you're saving over $100 off the pair of shoes. Plus, the sales tax is lower as well. So, if you like higher-end stuff, and you get it used, you can save a lot of money, because used goods last for a long time. Even if it's used, it'll last for many, many, many years to come. You can get the really nice stuff and pay a lot less for it. But let's look at the quality. So if you look at the Amazon reviews down here, you'll see it's an average of 4.5 stars. You're thinking, hang on a minute, the medium quality stuff had 4.6 stars, the high-end stuff has 4.5. So, like I said, medium quality goods have very similar quality to the high-end stuff. They're almost the same, just a little less, in this case, a little more. And, they both should last for a very, very long time. They both should be comfortable. Is this better? It's probably more comfortable. It may last for a bit longer. So if you're someone that has the money, you want something nice, go for it. But I say for most normal middle-class Americans, something like this is going to work just fine. It's not that expensive. It is fairly reasonable for what you're getting. And of course, it's very, very good quality. So when you ask yourself, okay, when should I buy higher end, lower end, and medium end? Like I said, typically the general rule of thumb is if you're going to use it a couple times, get it cheap. If you're going to use it a fair bit, get it moderate. And if you're going to use it all the time, get it high end. Like for example, someone I know, he works as a plumber. He was going to buy some of his own tools, and the other plumbers told him the same thing. You can get the cheap tools if you want, but they're all going to break in a couple of months. You got to buy new ones. You get the really expensive stuff, it'll last you for years to come, and you'll save a lot of money. So, I own products in all three categories. I have higher end goods, I have moderate goods, I have lower end goods. It just depends on what the purpose is. So, I think you should own items in all three categories. It just depends on what your budget is, what kind of lifestyle you're looking to live, and of course, what the intended use is. So, with the right strategy, you can still have nice things and save money. With the wrong strategy, if you buy everything as higher end goods, you put it on the credit card, you're paying full price, full sales tax, you're paying interest on your credit card, and of course, you're not getting on sale. Yes, you have nice stuff, but you're paying way too much for it. Just by going down to more of a, moderate quality goods, you can save a ton of money, get it on sale, pay for cash, don't have any interest payments. You can save so much money by doing that. So, like I said, if you have any questions, drop below in the comment section. I'd love to answer your questions. Otherwise, have a great day.